We're going to now hear from Allison Barmann, who is a strategy consultant at McKinsey Company, and she is currently on loan as director of the Itasca Project, which is an alliance of CEOs and civic leaders working to address the Minneapolis-St.Paul region's economic competitiveness and quality of life. The Itasca Project has worked on such issues as education, financial fitness, transportation, and economic development. Prior to joining McKinsey, Allison was an account manager at Telefia, a technology startup in San Francisco, and also served as a plant manager at 3M. Allison earned her MBA from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University and a BS in mechanical engineering, so for you engineers out there, she speaks your language, from MIT. Allison.
Good morning. Thank you, Gina. I'm very glad to be here, to be part of this process as you go about doing the very important job of establishing the vision for our transportation system. As Gina said, the Itasca Project works on issues that are important to regional economic competitiveness and quality of life, business-led, but I do think it's interesting. You'll hear a lot of the same themes that Kent just talked about as I review the material today. I wanted to do a couple things. First, give an overview of the Itasca Project, who we are, what we do, why we do it, and then narrow in on some of our findings from our recent job growth task force. So to start with, what is Itasca? It is an employer-led civic alliance focused on building a thriving economy and improved quality of life for our region. And by region, we mean the Minneapolis-St. Paul greater metro area. Itasca is comprised of nearly 60 community and business leaders. You'll see here some of the participants that are represented in our group. It includes many of our large companies. The leaders of those large companies are participants, as well as from some of our smaller companies, subject matter experts and real industry leaders. We are very purposeful about cross-sectoral collaboration because this is really critical to the issues we're working on. So we also include in our participant group the leaders of the 4 of our biggest foundations and the United Way, as well as some of our mayors, the leaders of the University of Minnesota MnSCU, private colleges. The goals of this group came together about 7 years ago to work together towards 2 pretty broad goals. First, to build a thriving economy and quality of life in our region, and to reduce and eliminate socioeconomic disparities. So you can see there very clearly in our goal and our reason for being, we include quality of life. Which I think is why Gina and the team thought of me when you were putting on this session. Why regional competitiveness? As I've said, we're very deliberate about looking at this as a region, and we really do think because that is the primary unit of competitiveness for employers, for jobs, for individuals when they think about where they want to live, grow up, raise a family. We also see competition is intensifying. The Minneapolis-St. Paul region is competing with focused, well-organized regions that are deliberately driving their economic development and enhancing the livability of their communities. We know we need strong public and private leadership, resolving complex issues like socioeconomic disparities or a transportation vision is really beyond the scope and capabilities of any one group. And of course, resources are finite. This is true more today than ever before, but public and private resources are limited, they're strained, and we can really truly maximize them by acting regionally, working collaboratively, and focusing on the most critical needs of the region. So how Itasca works, we are a bit of a unique model. You don't see a lot of organizations like Itasca. We are a true virtual organization. We have no staff, no building, no standing agenda. I am a consultant with McKinsey Company, just staffed to lead the activities or on loan to be the director of the Itasca Project. We are led by a very engaged leadership team. The group meets every Friday morning and includes, the chair of the Itasca Project is Mary Brainerd, the CEO of Health Partners. And then how it works is the participants, the 60 group, agree on priority issues that will address our regional economic vitality and quality of life. Decide what they want to work on, and then a CEO or team of CEO takes leadership on the specific issue and assembles a task force. The task forces identify a unique role for Itasca to play and just works to get things done, usually working with partnership with many organizations from around the region. Very committed to focusing on the facts. This means when we take on an issue, we'll invest in the upfront to really develop a common fact base, understand where we're starting from, and then develop solutions and ideas from there. And as I've said, operate as a virtual organization. Last year, we went through a little strategic planning process and decided to focus in on 3 key priority areas. First, generating high-quality job growth. Second, advancing a comprehensive and aligned transportation system. And third, improving our region's education system. And the group really narrowed in on these 3 areas as the real critical areas to our mission, but where we can also have a good deal of impact. Funny enough, today they told me not to focus on the transportation work, that we wanted to go a little broader. So I'm going to spend the rest of the talk talking about our work on the high quality job growth, which is very related to quality of life and transportation. But I will say, you know, we did pick transportation as one of our 3 priority areas because this group really does believe that it's critical to achieve our goals of raising economic competitiveness, quality of life, and disparities. Economic growth, a transportation system is a good transportation system is needed to move employers and our goods. It's critical to quality of life to attract the talent that we want to live here. And of course, a transportation system, an effective transportation system is a very important tool to address the disparities, kind of what Hector was talking about. So with that, I will move on to talking about what we did on our job growth task force. This group was assembled almost 18 months ago and given the task of developing strategies and policies to promote the retention, creation, and attraction of quality jobs in the Twin Cities region. As I said, CEOs take the leadership on these things. So we had Ken Powell, the CEO of General Mills, and Marilyn Carlson Nelson, the chairman of Carlson, lead this work. And I will tell you, they were very, very engaged in all of this to the point where they were, you know, editing documents. That's not the positioning I would pay. You know, it was really, really great working relationship to these leaders who are incredibly committed to our region. And so I'll start with the good news story, and then we'll do a little bit more of a critical assessment. But, you know, we in the Twin Cities have a lot to be proud of. We've enjoyed a lot of prosperity in recent years, and when we look back at the past 30-plus years, we've enjoyed steady growth. Our real income per capita has risen and is higher than the U.S. and the Midwest average. GDP per capita, same story. You know, that's very good news. We have a very strong private sector, which is you know, very important to the quality of life issue. More Fortune 500s per capita than just about any other region in the country. You know, they contribute $425 billion revenue that's brought in here in the region. In addition to 18 Fortune 500 companies, we also rank very highly in the very large and very successful private company list with companies like Cargill and Carlson. Also part of the good news story for our region is the world-class research capabilities we have right here in our own backyard. We rank 17th among states in R&D dollars per capita, 12th highest research intensity, and makes a lot of our R&D funding, ranking 5th among all states in patents per investment dollar. Of course, the U of M, a research engine right here. Shall we send the error report or don't send? All right, let's not send it. That wouldn't be good for our quality of life. All right, on we go. So the University of Minnesota, you know, the incredible research engine right here in our backyard that contributes to the private sector, our entrepreneurship environment, to our talent pool, and certainly to our quality of life. And finally, we have a host of other resources. The Mayo Clinic, probably just outside the metro area, but wow, what a resource for our region to drive job growth. You know, medical schools, our hospital systems, we've got a lot going from us when we look at that angle. And of course, strong human capital, very, very critical to job growth, to quality of life. By almost every metric you look at, our current population is more educated than just about any other region in the United States. are higher. We have more higher education, more people getting bachelor's degrees. So a very good story if we look at the snapshot. I can talk a little bit later during the critical assessment that though this is looking good right now, we're certainly at risk and probably trending in the wrong direction when we look at the disparities issues. And finally, the Twin Cities has really great attributes and amenities that make this a great place to call home. Everything from, #1 volunteering rate. I know our voting rate is very high. Local food community, athletic. Of course, the world's largest pond hockey tournament. A lot of great things that people get excited about. And I think these were a lot of the things Kent was talking about when people get excited about our region. So that was the good news story. Now we'll do a little bit of a critical assessment that the Job Growth Task Force went through. While long-term we've been doing very well, when we look at more recent years, we see our prosperity, a lot of indicators that suggest our prosperity is on the decline. This is our job growth relative to the U.S., and you see we are now growing at a rate slower than the U.S., so if it's above 0, that's good. We're growing faster than the U.S. average, below 0, and so you can see this trend downward over the past decade. And that's just quantity of jobs. These two charts show more about the quality of jobs, our GDP per capita and real income per capita, and again, you see our growth slowing to below that of the U.S. So in our view, that's certainly not a favorable trend. We'd like to continue our growth, both of quantity jobs and certainly quality, because that leads to a favorable quality of life for our region. We also learned, along with this, our business rankings have worsened. When you look at some of the important rankings that look at the region as a place for doing business, we see our in Forbes Best Places for Business and Career, we slipped from 20, not bad, down to 71. In Milken Best Performing Cities, which is a very economic-focused ranking, we started 99, which is not great, and slipped to not 13th, but 137. This format's a little messed up here, but it's 137th, so something we'd like to be much, much better on. So what the task force did from there was okay, let's really get behind this and understand what drives job growth and how are the Twin Cities doing on those factors. So there's a lot of text on this page, but I like having it all on one page because it gives a nice snapshot, a framework of our region and how we're doing on the drivers of job growth. And how we divided this out was we said there's two kinds of drivers to impact job growth. We have environmental levers and process levers. The environmental levers are the assets that you have in the region, what you have here, what you can market. And then the process levers are what you do with those assets. How do you go out and sell them? How do you bundle those assets to make the most? It's essentially the sales and marketing arm of any good corporation who, it's not enough just to have a great product. You actually have to be able to sell and market it. So those were the two distinctions we looked at. And then I'll just walk through each of these levers and our assessment of the Twin Cities on that. First, cost of doing business. Of course, if you're going to attract companies, it's important to have attractive cost of doing business, and this includes both tax rates, but also certainly tax climate, but also the regulatory permitting process, things like that. And I think, we generally see by most any metric, the Twin Cities tends to be below other regions when you look at that. Quality of life. By most metrics that we've looked at, we see the Twin Cities quality of life. This is really about the amenities that the region has to offer, the parks and the green space, the cultural institutions. We see the Twin Cities being really above average on most of those metrics. Third, human capital, as I talked about earlier, really critical driver. I should have mentioned that the source of this information was really a broad spectrum of research. We talked to a lot of site selectors, which are companies who help businesses identify where they should locate. We talked to a lot of business leaders. We talked to subject matter experts. We scanned the literature and did some of our own analysis, which resulted in all this. And conversations with business leaders and site selectors always pointed to human capital as being, probably the most important driver when you're a business looking to plant jobs. jobs. So we're in good shape from there. But again, if this had a trend line, even though we're in good shape, the trend is definitely pointing downward when you think of our disparities that we need to address and the achievement gap. The fourth area is our infrastructure, and this certainly includes things like transportation, our transit and transportation system. As I mentioned earlier, really important to job growth. It also includes the broadband electronic infrastructure that you had asked about. And by most metrics we looked at in this category, we found, middle of the road, a little better or a little worse, but middle of the road. So certainly some room for improvement. Finally, our fifth environmental lever is innovation and startup, and this is about, do you have the entrepreneurial culture, the entrepreneurial ecosystem to really drive the growth of small businesses? Because what we find is the vast majority of jobs are driven by small and very small companies, so it's important to have that ecosystem if you want to grow your job growth, or grow jobs. So those were the environmental levers. And then the process levers, what we found is that really successful regions can really sell and market their region. They have a unified vision. They know who they are. They can go out and sell it. I think we're here, you're working on a vision for the transportation, so you understand the importance of having a vision. And what we found is that the Twin Cities as a comprehensive group doesn't have that vision that we go out with as a region. Central economic development governance. That means there's a group that comes together that really is managing the economic development of our region, and there isn't actually someone who does that here in the Twin Cities metro area region like there are in other regions we see, and really a lot of places around the country have gotten very good at this. Kansas City, the Raleigh-Durham area, Pittsburgh, a lot of groups have really pulled this off and had great impact for their region. A sector focus, to be able to say as a region, we know what our primary sectors are and we're going to build up around those sectors. We've done some of this as a region, and that might be okay. And finally, an external marketing campaign, really out there selling the region once you've established a vision. So that was the picture we looked at. And I should mention, no region is green all across the board, and it probably wouldn't make sense to be green all across the board. But I think it's important for community leaders, business leaders to decide where we do want to be green and invest in those areas. So this Itasca Project and its task force looked at this and said, okay, what can we do about this? What do we need to do about it? And we've got two areas where we're starting, where we've said, okay, we have a role to play, and here's what we can do. First, to establish the innovation and startup community, we're working on the establishment of a business bridge, and this is really what we heard from a lot of small companies. Something that's an impediment to our entrepreneurial culture is they can't get access to our large companies. We have this great asset of all these terrific companies, terrific successful companies in the region, but our entrepreneurs are having a hard time accessing them. And likewise, the biz companies say, yeah, would love to do that, but there's no expedited way for us to connect with those. It's way too complex. So we're working on a supplier showcase and referral library to start building that bridge, and hopefully we'll have an impact on our entrepreneurial culture. The second piece we decided to address were the environmental levers, the centralized economic development, and hopefully many of you have heard about this, but we have initiated a Minneapolis-St.Paul Regional Economic Development Partnership who will drive the regional economic development. And that, how'd I do on time, Gina?
You did great.
So that's sort of an overview of Itasca, what we've been working on, and I'm happy to take questions.
Great. Thank you, Allison. Questions? Yes, right here, Joe.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. Appreciate it. As I mentioned, I'm Hector Garcia, and I was invited to form part of this group because I presented to Commissioner Sorrell a vision of a new image for the Twin Cities metro area that is a bit more international than the one that the Regional Economic Development Partnership is planning on doing. And it also...
Did you say more international?
Yes.
Okay.
As I understand, the image that the REDP is planning to develop is meant to attract companies from other states as well as knowledge workers from other states whereas the one that we've developed is more intended to attract foreign trade, foreign investment, tourism from other countries, based on the resources of not only the ones that you've listed, the Fortune 500 companies and others, but also the ethnic groups, and turning them from a source of disparities
Yep.
into assets.
Yep.
You know, you were talking about process levers, what we do with resources.
Yep.
And in the case of the minorities, I feel that they're untapped resources.
Yep.
We are untapped resources. And so I'd like your opinion on what can be done from your perspective in making that conversion possible.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Untapped resources, absolutely. A couple responses. I do think the REDP, the Regional Economic Development Partnership, will be looking international, and with the goal, again, their goal is to attract, retain, and expand employers, but they will be looking international for those sources. So that I think that'll be important. As for how we can tap this important asset of our minority communities, you know, we're looking for ways to do that as well, and certainly open to ideas. But you know, I think this business bridge I talked about is one of those, right? Because I think the small entrepreneurs have challenges accessing our big companies' purchasing departments, but minority entrepreneurs, you know, even more so face some of those barriers. So hopefully, we've been working with Yvonne Chung-Ho from MITA and some of the others to try to increase those bridges. Certainly our education work is, you know, designed in a great way to close the achievement gap, and again, to tap the potential of the minority groups. In transportation, we've been working a lot on transit issues, which again I think is critical to addressing the disparities, enabling some of those lower income populations to access jobs. So those are some of the ways we've been thinking about it, but it's a big issue and room for a lot of ideas.
One last comment. Oh, go ahead.
David Thornton, Pollution Control Agency. Did Itasca try to identify the main drivers behind the, I think it was declining trend on GDP and personal income?
Yeah, I mean, that is what we tried to do with some of this, and it's a complex story, and our best explanation, because our good story hasn't changed, right? We haven't dropped in a lot of the things we used to be good at, but our best explanation is that other regions have just gotten much more competitive. I mean, our education system used to be, stronger than just about anywhere else, but now we have states like Florida really catching and surpassing us, and that's the same story in a bunch of these areas where other regions, both domestic and internationally too, have just gotten much more organized and much more competitive, while, in my opinion, the Twin Cities has rested on our laurels a little bit because we had such a good thing going.
Yes, up here.
I was wondering if Itasca is looking at specific transportation investments that would help retain and attract businesses. That's something that we've been really encouraged. The department is working more with DEED on promoting the idea of economic development with transportation investments. So are you looking at, if we put an interchange in here, if we expand the highway here, if we put in rail here, here are the businesses that would benefit, or how many jobs could potentially be created?
So we haven't gotten down to that level. We're much more at a systemic level of, we know why transportation is important. We support investments in transportation and transit. We left some of that work to our counterparts at the Chambers of Commerce and the like to do some of that thinking. So.
All right, well, let's thank, wait, one more question back here, and then we'll move on.
Bill Stearns. It just strikes me that some of the things you put up there talked about Minnesota in a very positive vein, that it has a lot going for it. And I think the people telling the stories over and over the last 8 years have not done that.
Yeah.
That the downside of Minnesota's economic slide has just been promoted over and over and over. Keep telling what we're doing wrong, what the state's doing wrong, and I think everybody knows by heart what we're doing wrong. But it's good to see something we're doing right for a change.
Yeah, that's good. And Marilyn Carlson Nelson, she is a champion of that message. I mean, every time we got together, it's, we have such a good story. Why aren't we talking about it more? Why, I mean, you know, she takes it down to, why do we focus on the negative of our weather? Everywhere you go, we have CEOs talking to the CEOs in, you know, in other states about the problems we have here. We need to turn that around because we have such a great message, and certainly some things we need to improve, absolutely. But we do have a great message to share.